જય સ્વામિનારાયણ બધાને. સહજાનંદ સ્વામી મહારાજની જય, બાપા શ્રીની જય, સદગુરુ શ્રીની જય, સ્વામિનારાયણ ભગવાનની જય તથા અનંત અનાદિ મુક્તોની જય. A humble prayer in their lotus feet, and our Guru, Anadi Muktraj Param Pujya Narayan Mama and Leela Masi's lotus feet, to augment this assembly with their divinity and grace. I humbly bow to their feet and pray to them to shower their blessings on us today and forever for the bliss of the Divine Murti of Lord Swaminarayan. And I also request forgiveness from them as well as from this divine satsang to pardon my mistakes and shortcomings and ignorance. A couple of weeks ago we had talked about the first two habits of highly effective people and how Supreme Lord Sri Swaminarayan not only displayed the habits himself but also enabled his near and dear ones develop those habits. Today we will delve into the next two habits of highly effective people. Put first things first and think win-win. This is habits 3 and 4. The first habit that we'll talk about today leads from dependence to independence, and the second habit leads from independence to interdependence. So put first things first. This habit 3, is based on the principle of personal management. So we have taken an example of programming. So habit 1 is the awareness that we are the programmer. Habit 2 is the way we write the program. And habit 3 is how we execute it. It is a test of our integrity. Habit 2 decides what the first things are. Habit 3 decides whether we can walk the talk. Habit 3 is a habit of discipline and commitment to live by those first things. Highly effective people and organizations do not manage time. Time is fixed. There are 24 hours in the day. So they do not manage time. They manage the self within the time that is given to us. Instead of being caught up in the urgent, in the thick of thin, they execute to their deepest priorities. They put first things first. Kavi says, things which matter most should never be at the mercy of things that matter least. Habit 3 is a management principle to put first things first. It focuses on relationships rather than schedule. People and relationships are the first things. Traditional management has always dealt with time, with efficiency, with doing more things faster. It is focused on efficiency and control, and it is called time management. Now, have we ever tried to be efficient with our loved ones? How does it go? Does efficiency work with a loved one? No, it does not. We have to put the required time to manage that loving relationship with our near and dear ones. In putting first things first, in valuing people and relationships over time and efficiency, an investment is required. It's a slow process. But in effectiveness, fast is slow, and slow is fast and effective. We want effectiveness with people and efficiency with things. People are not things. We want relationship first, then scheduled. Leadership first, then management. A compass first, then a clock. And to explain the compass first, then a clock concept, Kavi says write down what are the most important things in life. List just 5 or 6 of them and then rank them in the order of priority. In order to prioritize, try cutting out one at a time to get to the most important one. Then the next, then the next. And now study that. Most people put family and loved ones first. And this is true all over the world. People also note down the same activities that will give them the results they want. Most of the time, it is about values, principles, relationships, and planning. Now, in order to manage ourselves better in the time that is given to us, let's answer 2 questions. We don't need to answer them to anybody, just to ourselves. The first question is, what is that one activity that we absolutely know that if we did superbly well and did it consistently, would produce marvelous results in our personal and family life? And the second question is, which is that one activity that we absolutely know that if we do superbly well and do it consistently, will produce marvelous results in our professional life? So one activity for personal life and one activity for professional life. Now let's think of a time management matrix with 4 quadrants based on things that are important versus things that are urgent. So think of 4 squares tied to each other. The top left square, quadrant 1, consists of things that are urgent and important. Quadrant 2, top right corner square, consists of things that are not urgent but are important. Quadrant 3, The bottom left consists of things that are urgent and not important, and quadrant 4 is things that are not urgent and not important. In this matrix, quadrant 2, things that are not urgent but are important, is a leadership quadrant. The answer to the two questions that we thought about a few minutes ago is usually in quadrant 2. We know it will help us to do those things, but we are not doing it. Why? Because it is not urgent. Communication, relationship, mission statement all fall under Q2. Things that are not urgent but are very important. And most organizations called Q2, the second quadrant, as other business and focus on quadrant 1 and 3, the urgent things, whether they are important or not. To be effective, we should neglect quadrant 3 and quadrant 4, meaning we should neglect things that are not important and focus on quadrant 2 over quadrant 1. Focus on quadrant 2 over quadrant 1 will gradually diminish time that we spend in quadrant 1, things that are urgent. We won't be fighting so many fires if we are really doing the things that are important and doing them well. So gradually the urgent things will go down and the important things will always get done. So this is what habit 3, put first things first, means. So having talked about what the habit means, let's now look into how Lord Swaminarayan exhibited this habit. The first part of this habit is to walk the talk, to stay true to the principles, and prioritize everything else around those principles. Lord Swaminarayan left his home at the age of 11. As Nilkantvarni, in the early part of his travel, he had arrived at a city called Butol sometime between November 1793 and April 1794. He was 12 to 13 years of age, and he stayed there for 4 months and left in August 1794. The queen of Butol, Mayavati, she was actually the sister of the king of Butol, offered to marry her daughter to him, to Nilkantvarni, and give him the kingdom. But Lord Swaminarayan, who has always talked about giving up worldly pleasures for the love of God, did not stay back. Prior to that, a king had offered to marry his 2 daughters to Nilkantvarni and give his kingdom, which too Nilkantvarni had declined. And also prior to arriving to Butol, a head of a religious ashram had offered his ashram and its leadership to Nilkantvarni, but he declined that too. He stayed true to his principles. So these are just a few incidents from his life that show that he stayed true to the principles. He practiced what he preached. Actually, he practiced more than what he preached. He has made the lives of satsangis much more easier than the life that he had led on earth. The second part of the habit is about dealing with relationships first, then schedules. Lord Swaminarayan considered relationships, values, and principles much higher over everything else. And he exhibited this not just with human beings but also with animals. So once in Gadhra, near the stream of Sumabai's place, I don't think this stream exists today, but near the stream, a lioness sought shelter with her 4 cubs. In order to feed her cubs, she started ravaging the homes and backyards of the people living there and took away some domesticated animals. And this news reached Lord Swaminarayan. So Lord Swaminarayan went there with a group of armed Kathis. Kathi clan was one of the most ferocious ones known at that time. And then they had become disciples of Lord Swaminarayan. So Lord Swaminarayan went there with a group of armed Kathis, and at that time the lioness was hiding in the bushes. The easy, efficient and schedule-based way to deal with this would have been to simply shoot at the bushes and kill the lioness and the cubs. But Lord Swaminarayan respected every life and believed in the principles of compassion and non-violence. So he asked the Kathis to fire rounds from their guns in the air. Alarmed by the sound, the lioness left the bushes and hid behind some fence. Lord Swaminarayan asked the Kathis to repeat what they did. After hiding at 2-3 different places, the lioness finally arrived at the stream and she started rolling in the sand by the stream with her cubs out there in the open. And some Kathis wanted to shoot her. But Lord Swaminarayan stopped them. He guided the lioness towards the forest and let her go away peacefully to the forest with her cubs. Now this entire process took a few hours as compared to the 10 minutes of efficiency that could have been derived by shooting at the lioness and cubs and killing them. The third part of the habit is to manage ourselves better in the time that is given to us. And two or three incidents, 2 or 3 things come to mind. Once the king of Panchada, Jina Bhai, visited Lord Swaminarayan in Gadhra. Lord Swaminarayan asked Jina Bhai how he was doing, how things are going, and then after some conversation, after some time, Lord Swaminarayan said, Jina Bhai, you should not keep too much wealth in Panchada. Jina Bhai responded, Lord, please send some devoted guards to bring the wealth here. So Lord Swaminarayan got a letter written by his scribe Ladha Thakkar and sent 8 guards with a letter to Panchada. Jina Bhai's family members too were equally devoted to Lord Swaminarayan, so they readily followed the instructions in the letter and sent all their wealth to Gadhada. And Jina Bhai stayed back in Gadhada to spend quality time with Lord Swaminarayan. In a few days, dacoits rioted the village of Panchada and took away wealth from most of the wealthy people. Jina Bhai's wealth, since it was in Gadhada, was protected. The news eventually reached Gadhada and Lord Swaminarayan read the letter to Jina Bhai and sent him to Panchada with 25 armed kathis led by Somla Khachar. Later Muktanand Swami said, Shriji Maharaj, the 2 boons that you asked from Ramanand Swami, you keep staying true to them every step of the way and keep protecting your devotees. Other incarnations test the inner strength of their devotees, and these are rigorous tests. But you are unique in the sense that you protect your devotees from all the hardships, including the most difficult moment of leaving the body. Now, in this particular case, Lord Swaminarayan could have focused on just that one urgent incident of dacoity and sent guards to protect Jina Bhai's home during dacoity. However, the dacoits would have come back again later to steal and would have kept coming till they got Jina Bhai's wealth. Just as Jarasandha kept invading Mathura in the story of Mahabharata, and Muhammad Ghori kept invading Gujarat till he had plundered all of its wealth completely. So the dacoits would have kept coming back. The approach of moving the wealth to Gadhada, though time-consuming and onerous at that time, was the right thing to do. The dacoits went away thinking they got all there was to get and never came back again. The second incident that comes to mind is that of Mavji Dave of Doraji. He left his body while Lord Swaminarayan was visiting his home. Mavji Dave's sister Gangabai was sad about her brother. But even more than that, she was worried about the livelihood of the family, since Mavji Dave's 4 sons were still young kids. She expressed her concerns to Lord Swaminarayan. Lord Swaminarayan said, Gangaben, do not worry. Your brother's sons are very capable and ethical. They have good values. They will take good care of the family. And it is my responsibility to arrange financial viability of your family. Lord Swaminarayan then asked Muktanand Swami, who also was with him at that time, if he had any scriptures in his bag. Now we have to remember at that time there were no printing press. So all that was available were the handwritten editions of the books. And Sadguru Muktanand Swami had Ram Katha Kand in 3 volumes in his bag. Lord Swaminarayan asked the 3 younger sons to read 1 volume each. And though they were not educated, they could read the volumes that Lord Swaminarayan gave them due to grace of Lord Swaminarayan. Lord Swaminarayan then said they could earn their livelihood by preaching people using Ramkatha Kand volumes. The elder son, Harjivan, was not asked to participate in this by Lord Swaminarayan. It would have been more efficient at that time to teach the elder son than teaching the younger kids. Sadguru Muktanand Swami even questioned what Lord Swaminarayan did. And Lord Swaminarayan responded, Swami, I am doing what is most effective thing to do. You will know in future. Now Harjivan Bhai was very devoted and wanted to get liberated. So Lord Swaminarayan had a different plan for him. And that's the reason Lord Swaminarayan invested in the long-term future of the family, even if it took longer to do so. 6 months later, when Lord Swaminarayan and Muktanand Swami visited Thoraji again, Gangabai told them that Harjivan Bhai left the body, and at that time Lord Swaminarayan gave him divine darshan and liberated him. Once again, Lord Swaminarayan managed the time that he had with Mauji Bhai's family and addressed the long-term good of the family, even if it took longer to do so. He also helped Harjivan Bhai focus on the important thing for the few months that he had, rather than having him focus on the urgent worldly thing of earning a livelihood. The other thing that stands out from the life of Lord Swaminarayan is that there is a direct route from Ayodhya to Gujarat. There was awareness of that route at that time, since later during the life of Lord Swaminarayan, aspirants travelled from eastern India to Gujarat. Also, Lord Swaminarayan himself had travelled more than halfway to Gujarat to Burhanpur with his elder brother Ram Pratap Bhai. However, when it came to his journey, he travelled across whole of India before arriving to Gujarat. The efficient way would have been to straight away come to Gujarat. And I used to wonder why he did not do that when I was a kid. But now I understand why. One, he wanted to establish an example on his devotees, that to establish something long term, a price needs to be paid. And second, he wanted to respect the relationship with every aspiring credible soul that there was on the land of India and grant them ultimate liberation, not just a few handful in the direct route from Ayodhya to Gujarat. So this is about putting first things first and focusing more on relationships than schedule. Let's now move to the 4th habit. Think win-win. This is a habit that leads from independence to interdependence, and it is based on the principle of mutual benefit and respect. Win-win lies at the very heart of every relationship. It is a habit of golden world, a habit of abundance. There is enough for everyone and more to spare. We do not have to be threatened by other people. We can nurture competency around us higher than our own. We can share knowledge and recognition and gain and profit, and there will be enough for everybody. The thing is, when we determine our worth and value based on comparison with others, how do we stack up? We always live in anxiety. We are worried about how we dress, how we look, what we drive, where we live. And we are threatened by the competency around us. We feel that if we share knowledge, we lose our advantage and power. And this is a paradigm of scarcity. There is not enough for everybody, so whatever one has to hang on to it, cling on to it. It's not a paradigm of abundance. We are so used to thinking in dichotomies. We win or we lose. We are strong or we are weak. It's always a either or. And this kind of belief makes us very vindictive. And some people are so drenched in their egos that they do not care if they lose as far as the other person loses. Now think about it. Do we do that with our family members? We don't. And if we did that, would our family survive? It will not. It will break apart. And Kavi says that there is a universal principle of equity and fairness. Anything other than win-win means going against that principle. Eventually, a lose-win or a win-lose will become lose-lose since it's against the principle. So, where are the roots of developing this win-win mentality? Where does it come from? And it comes from the private victory of habits 1, 2, and 3. We are at peace with ourselves if the private victory is real and sincere. We are not just at peace, we are centered, we are anchored, we are rooted, we are established. Our ego is not involved. And down deep within us, we are invulnerable. And so on surface, we can be vulnerable and go with win-win. When we think win-win, we create abundance, alternatives, and better solutions, since there is enough for all. This mentality increases knowledge, increases power, and earlier fears become unfounded. Now we have to remember, win-win does not mean being nice and soft. In win-win, we consent together. And if we cannot arrive at a win-win, we should go for no deal. And this way we can be absolutely open and honest. We would have no hidden negotiation agenda or techniques. And we just basically say we want both of us to win. We try to understand each other genuinely and sincerely, and we put a stewardship agreement and we stick to that agreement. And Kavi says the 5 elements of win-win stewardship agreement are clear description of desired results, Teach people the guidelines, outline the no-nos, do not hide the failure path. That's the second one. Third, identify the resources, whether they are people, financials, whatever it happens to be. Fourth is identify and set up an accountability agreement to focus on the results. And fifth is identify the consequences, good or bad, based on the accountability on how well the desired results were achieved. So we'll look at a couple of incidents from Lord Swaminarayan's life uh, that showed that he exhibited this habit of arriving at win-win solutions. And we will also understand his win-win stewardship agreement with us. So once Ghanshyambai was asked to protect the field of Dharmapita and Vashramama from the sparrows that would come and eat away the grains. Now young Ghanshyambai did not want to shy away from the responsibility. At the same time, he did not want to take away sparrows' food, and he also wanted to play with his friends. So he came up with a very creative solution. There is enough for all. There is enough divine bliss for everybody. Divine bliss is not limited, it is abundant. So Lord Swaminarayan put the sparrows in samadhi. They enjoyed the bliss of his divine form while in samadhi. So it was a win for the sparrows. At the cost of one day's meal, they could enjoy the divine bliss of Supreme Lord. It was a win for Dharmapita and Vashramama as their fields were protected. And it was a win for Ghanshyambai since he could now go and play with his friends. So it was a win-win solution. We have talked about a similar solution earlier where where the saints had to collect cooking fuel, and women in the village also wanted to do the same thing, and Lord Swaminarayan put the women in samadhi so that the saints could collect the fuel. Now before taking on the leadership of the satsang, Ramanand Swami once sent Sahajanand Swami with 4 saints to Mangrove to open a Sadavrat. Sadavrat is a place where free food is offered to poor and destitute, and also to travelers since there are no hotels in those days. Sahajanand Swami arrived at Mangrove and was able to agree with a mendicant named Atmanand that he will let them cook in his ashram and will also provide them access to all the amenities he had to support the Sadavrat. After running the Sadavrat for about 4 months, the mendicant Atmanand, on the day of Annakut, told one of the 4 saints that accompanied Sahajanand Swami to keep a sweet called Sukhdi for him, since he was going to be away at the time of the meal. Sahajanand Swami learnt about it and thought, a mendicant who has renounced the worldly pleasures should not be attached to a specific dish or food. This will set a bad example on other saints and devotees in the satsang. So that day he himself went to serve the diners and gave away all the sukhdi, the one that mendicant Atmanand had asked to save for him. When mendicant Atmanand returned, he got furious and said that the agreement they had was off, and he will not let Sahajanand Swami and his saints cook in his ashram, and will neither give them any access to the amenities. Lord Swaminarayan realized that any compromise with the principles of the life of a renouncer, someone who has renounced the world in pursuit of spiritual progress, lives by certain principles. And if those principles are compromised, it will not be a win for anyone in the long term. So that very day, with the help of the devotees of the village, Sahajanand Swami set up a tent on the other side of the village and cooked food and started running his Sadavrat from there. In this particular case, since it was not possible to arrive at a win-win solution, Lord Swaminarayan went with no deal. Now let's look at the stewardship agreement that he has built with us and for us. The first element of the agreement is clear description of desired results. Lord Swaminarayan spent his entire lifetime explaining the achievement of the formidable goal of ultimate liberation. He also explained that the desired result of a life of a satsangi is to continuously strive to achieve that goal. The second element, teach people the guidelines, outline the no-nos. Lord Swaminarayan has very nicely articulated the guidelines in Shikshapatri. Third, identify the resources, people, finance, etc. He has given us 4 resources to achieve the desired outcomes. The idols in the temples, the Sadgurus, be it renouncer or householder, the satsang leadership seats, and the scriptures. Fourth is identify and set up an accountability agreement to focus on the results. He has established accountability in terms of how much do we really strive to achieve the goals in our lifetime. If we do enough and stay true to him and his mukta, we will get liberated in this lifetime. If not, we take another birth. Until we get there, we continue pursuing the goals and then get ultimate liberation. And fifth is identify the consequences, good or bad, based on the accountability. And that is an automatic cycle. As soon as you have done good enough, we get ultimate liberation. So that is our stewardship agreement with Lord Swaminarayan. And if we abide by the guidelines and achieve the desired results, then we have a win-win solution. He wants to grant liberation to the souls, and the souls would get liberated. So it's a win for both. So today we talked about 2 habits and related incidents from life of Lord Swaminarayan. Next month we will continue with the remaining 3 habits and conclude with an establishment that Lord Swaminarayan was highly effective. And then in the following months we'll look at his leadership qualities based on some other books that we talked about, and eventually establish that Lord Swaminarayan was a highly effective spiritual leader. My humble charan sparsh Sahajay Shri Swaminarayan to the Mukto. Sahajanand Swami Maharaj ni jai. Bapa Shri ni jai. Sadguru Shri ni jai. Swaminarayan Bhagwan ni jai. Vishal bhai, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, what she has taken up today requires a lot of research and connection, They get up and lateral thinking, get them in day-to-day life, when you come across some of the leadership, things and the readings, trying to connect to Lord Swaminarayan it's a uniqueness that she has done actually. And I think I'm very confident that he just said, I will recording and keeping that. It would give a completely different perspective to many individuals about Lord Swaminarayan. Dr. Maharaj ने अपना मुक्तों का जन्म प्रार्थना करे श्री महाराज ने बाबा श्री एक नेता पे ध्यान में भी बनाने वाला इंटरव्यू प्रेरणा आता है कि आप अपना करे महाराज ने जो कार्य करे ये प्रार्थना सदैव स्वामी महाराज जय स्वामीनारायण बता मुक्तों ने
जय स्वामीनारायण
राम नाम जय स्वामीनारायण
बता राजी रह जाओ हाँ राजी रह जाओ
बता राजी रह जाओ पूछो जय स्वामीनारायण जय स्वामीनारायण जय स्वामीनारायण जय स्वामीनारायण क्या करे जय स्वामी के जो हिसाब है हाँ श्योर जय स्वामीनारायण जय स्वामीनारायण जय स्वामीनारायण